Let's go. Joel. Don't fuck this up. Please.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody. My name is Kevin.
My name's Adam.
And I'm Julie.
And we are the Real Movie Guys, and welcome back to an episode of The Real Review, the series we review and discuss all your favorite movies and TV shows. And today, guys, we're talking about the very first episode of The Last of Us, When You're Lost in the Darkness. 20 years after a fungal outbreak ravages the planet, survivors Joel and Tess are tasked with a mission that could change everything. Well, guys, I didn't think this would happen. It's been, God, such a long time. I think there was a movie adaptation at one point. There was... a bunch of different discussions. I think there was another TV show maybe at some other point. We're here. The Last of Us is finally here. The critically acclaimed Sony game is finally being adapted for the masses on television. And I have to say, guys, this first episode was really good. This was a really good interpretation of a series. Adam, where do you stand with this?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great. I really did. I feel like it was very well handled, especially for a TV adaptation, you know, coming from the game translating over. I thought that was very well done, so far at least.
Yeah, so far I think we got a pretty good inclination of what's to come. Julie, how about you? How are you feeling?
I completely agree. As someone who's new, I guess, to The Last of Us, just recently played it. Really happy with, I guess, you know, the game to television translation. The cast is excellent. We have Pedro Pascal, so...
Yeah, Pedro Pascal. I feel like there was a lot going into this where I think the casting was a big worry. I don't want to say that all my feelings are set aside, but what they've shown me so far, I think a lot of it is, right? Pedro Pascal is Joel. He is Joel. You know, I don't, and it's just for, you know, the start of this, I don't want to get too into comparisons with the video game discussion. When it's important, we will talk about it with you guys. But what I really want to focus on is the merits of this show, because the merits of the show are excellent, and the actors prove that. If I never knew who Joel was before watching this, excellent casting. Pedro Pascal, I think, really brought the vibe of showing someone who had to deal with loss, making tough decisions, and how cold he is to the world now. What did you think, Adam? Even taking away, again, that comparison from the game, how did Pedro Pascal do you think? Did you care about his character right away?
Yeah, I immediately, as soon as I saw him on screen, I was like, holy crap, that's Joel right there.
Right.
It's come to life.
Right, and then again, not even knowing that is Joel, I think they did a really good job, especially the casting of his daughter. I know, Julie, you said a lot of people online have been talking about it. I think her name is Nico Parker. She plays Sarah, who's Joel's daughter in the show. They had a lot to do with right there, right? We had to actually fall in love with her character right away, and I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, like you were saying with the performances of Pedro and Nico, a lot of heavy lifting, especially on Nico, because short time overall on the screen, and you had to be able to love her. And I mean, I guess, are we going into spoiler territory?
Yeah, I believe we could talk about spoilers.
Okay.
A lot of people will be coming back to see this. So
right. So, you know, you had to fall in love with her to be able to mourn her and grieve her with Joel. And just that, I mean, the whole, you know, escaping the town scene was so high tense. I know without even thinking of the video game, like I knew how things were going to shake out, and I was still anxious. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Like, very nerve wracking. And then, you know, of course, when he realizes she's been, you know, and losing her and trying to keep her with him. Very emotional, very, you know,
right.
A lot of skill put into that scene on both parts too.
Yeah, near perfect, I have to say. This is the most important scene in The Last of Us. I think someone can maybe make the argument. I mean, of course, there's going to be stuff down the line, but this scene had to hit home with Joel losing his daughter at the beginning, because this is the spark that's going to ignite the rest of his journey. Every decision he makes, every choice that's going to be made going forward. this is Joel. This is the essence of his character. And if that scene didn't hit, then I don't think the rest of the show would be able to stand. I mean, of course, we're going to see what happens as time goes on. But right now, I kind of believe his motivations, even with the brief exchange we had with him and Ellie, when Ellie was, going to be shot at one point. He had those flashbacks, and that's something that's going to haunt him for the rest of this series, losing his daughter. And ironically, it's another girl that's kind of filling her spot, and we're going to see how that carries on in the story. But Adam, again, we'll go into a little bit with it now. So with the video game, there's a lot of scenes in this show that are one-for-one recreations. How does that make you feel as a fan of The Last of Us, seeing that on screen?
Well, at first,
Okay.
I was like, I don't know, it kind of was a little cringy, but
It was
after
corny,
a while,
right? At first,
yeah.
it definitely had. Yeah, I don't know what it is, right? I'm trying to find like the right, like we're trying too hard, right, to be something.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
To some extent.
I got that like uneasy, like ooh feeling.
But obviously, your opinion changed as it went on.
Absolutely. I was like, after that, I started getting excited for like the scenes to come up. Be like, oh, I know what's happening next. Oh, I know what's happening next. I just want to see it on the screen, and it's very well done.
And and that's part of it, I think. So if you really want to look at the video game as a piece of artwork in itself, especially, I think video games, especially with their cinematics, have a lot of tie-in to the film genre. They're already shot perfectly. Those scenes, in that game, those cinematics are already perfect. We don't need to change anything. So why change it? If they fit into the show and it's not too jarring, why change it? And I think that's what a lot of the scenes they did. Like, as we're talking about this first emotional impact scene with Joel, it worked out perfectly, in my opinion. They had the right camera angle from the side. He tussles down the hill. He's holding her. It sucked, man. It really sucked. And maybe even a little more powerful, I think I would argue, than the game itself, where just maybe seeing it as real people and there's no uncanny valley or anything in between.
I definitely feel it was more impactful. Definitely.
Yeah.
There was that rawness to it. Again, it's something that you can't capture, which they did an amazing job. I mean, we played the remastered version. The motion capture, the facial capture is excellent, but having, real people creating that scene, there's just, there's more,
something there that wasn't there maybe in the video game itself. And now that's something also, too, I wanted to talk about with you, because Adam specifically, I know, we haven't really talked much about this on the channel with video games and comparisons to movies. There's some things that work in games, and there's some things that work in movies, and they're not necessarily always the same. So, for example, in the show has to tell the same story, but a little bit differently and get its point across. So, for example, in the game, you would go around, you'd find like little hidden collectibles, or you'd find in the beginning, it's similar but different, I would argue. In the beginning, Joel's daughter wakes up, she's walking around, she finds like little knickknacks, she finds like the watch, she finds like a letter, and she reads like a birthday card. You get all these things without having to tell the audience about it. But when you watch a movie, though, that's very different, right? Adam, you would agree that's like a different form of genre to tell.
Absolutely, because it's very player focused. It's player driven. Right. It depends on what I do.
Right. You're experiencing it. You're making those choices. But when you're telling a story, specifically like in a show like this, you have to tell the audience or give the audience this information. They're not going to go look for it like you wouldn't say a game. So how do you think they adapted that? Because one of my things with The Last of Us is I think it's a masterpiece of a game. I will say that. And again, we won't go, I promise, for all you people who aren't here for game comparisons, we won't talk about this nonstop. But I think the weakest part of The Last of Us in some ways was the beginning of the story, and in the game at least. But the show, I think, did a really good job retelling that story. It gave me a little more background information. It's kind of warranting me coming to the show. Would you agree with that? And retelling this information?
I would, because I think the pacing is just this much better on the show than it is through the game, because it's for the game, it kind of like drags you through, because it's like it is a game still, so they have to go through the whole tutorial thing. So it's kind of drags on for a little bit, but in the show, they obviously don't have to go through all that.
Yeah, and I like also too, and I hope they don't go too much into this. At the beginning of the story, we are told a little bit about like the fungal infection, and given a little. I thought that was really well done. And that was kind of interesting, because in the game, it's never discussed, really. I mean, till towards the end, when we won't get into that because that is actually spoilers. But when it's more discussed towards the end of the game, we get an idea. But for them to do this like cold open with an interview between doctors discussing like the end of the world and what could happen and stuff like that with infections and all that. Eerily, of course, you have the comparison to COVID and stuff, which we just had a pandemic, so obviously we have that comparison. But let alone the fungal explanation that they gave, I thought was really chilling. What did you think, Julie? I know we were watching it. You were really into that scene.
Yeah, and especially too considering where they placed that. I think they had that interview taking place in like the 70s, and then the initial outbreak happening in like 2003 in the show. So to show that it's like removed, and these are just scientists discussing theory, and even I thought that was just a really cool scene to see. Like, it's a lighthearted interview, they're joking, and then as that one guy keeps continuing to talk about in the event of a fungal infection, or if the world warms, which in our society now, our Earth is a lot warmer than it used to be, you know, then the potential for these outbreaks can increase, and it's game over. And to see the audience quiet down, and then the interviewer himself be like, okay, well then what? And then he's like, and then we're done.
Yeah.
It was very chilling. Someone even tweeted, they're like, this was probably the scariest part of the show, that cold open.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with that at this point. And I hope they don't. Again, it's one of those things. I don't want too much over explanation as to what's happened. Like, I feel like that's enough.
I hope that's it.
Yeah. What do you think, Adam? Would you want any more real dive into like the virus, or I think
No.
that's enough when you say
absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%, because it's like it gives you that enough, like
that's fine. I don't need it
yeah,
anymore.
just gives me a little bit.
Yeah.
I know enough.
Yes. And it's not even concrete saying, like, you know, I mean, this is just a scientific theory, and it looks as if now that theory is now taking place, but we don't know how, we don't know why, it's just happening.
Right. And then so we'll keep going on here. So as we take a tour of the show, if you will, going through this first episode, something else that they did is, like I said, in the game, you experience things like secondhand through like letters and a lot of this kind of thing. But the show gave us more into what's going on in the world besides Joel's story. And what I mean by that is there's a small child, which I thought that was a very well done scene as well, where the child they bring into the encampment there, and they test the child to see if the child has the virus or whatever, the fungal infection. And, you know, they test positive and they're like, oh, we'll take care of you. And then you see they're burning the bodies of the people that they found. And that's something you never got in the game. And it's interesting avenue to explore now. We get to actually see more of this world instead of being told about it. Don't you think, Adam? Because again, we didn't really get that, I feel like, in the game so much, is where we just kind of like ran through it real quick when we had those journeys.
Right. I think that this show is going to expand the universe a lot more than it ever could in the game, because it's going to, you know, as the pacing, it just seems to flow better as a TV show.
It is lightning quick, right? And they made smart changes, and you have to do that. So there's going to be fans out there that aren't going to like these changes. And I guess when they come up, you know, it's something we will address as the time goes on throughout the show. But any change so far that they've made, I think has made sense, you know, so at least to tell this story. I think they're giving a little more development to some of these characters. Like, I think Tommy is someone who we're going to see a little bit more development to his character. Really, Tommy's like just briefly mentioned in the beginning of the Last of Us game. Here, it seems like, you know, he was already in trouble with the law, and you have some other stuff going on, and they're trying to maybe just flesh these characters out a little bit more, rather than just being like, here's Tommy, Joel's brother. Who knows what'll happen going on in the show, but, you know, at least it seems like they're trying to give us a little bit more. And I appreciate that. I think that's a really good choice, you know, as far as what they're doing. What else stood out to you, Adam, about the show? Is there any other like big changes, or, you know, anything along those lines? You know, because as a fan, I know you were really waiting for this, maybe more than anybody else.
Yeah, I just really liked the expanding on everything. I enjoyed, because, you know, I just like The Last of Us. Just give me more Last of Us lore and stuff like that. That's what I like. I'm here for it.
Right. No, I think so. How about you, Julie? Was there anything that you wanted and didn't get maybe in this first episode? We're going to talk a little bit more about a few things, but
I think it gave me everything I wanted. I was curious, like, as we were watching it, and I knew that I think it ended up being about an hour and a half, the episode.
Yeah, it was a bit longer, I think, than the normal episode.
As we were watching it, we kept saying, you know, I wonder where this first episode's going to leave us. So, and I'm happy with, I expected it to go a little bit further, but I think where it ended with them about to, I guess, go into that, not contamination zone, but they're out of the city, they're out of the quarantine zone.
Yeah.
I think it was a really nice place to stop, really, because you could hear, you know, as they're showing, the dilapidation of society, and you hear the screeches of,
Yeah, the clickers and
the
whatnot.
contaminated, or the infected, I should say.
Yeah, we don't have the name yet, right?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I mean, it's one of those things. The pace is so much quicker than it is in the game, where a lot of, I guess, we keep going back to the game. I guess when
Yeah, I know it's hard not to. Sometimes I've experienced it. It's hard.
Where this episode has taken us through, a lot of time is spent like, oh, we're dodging, we're just trying to get out of the quarantine zone.
I think they made a joke. I was reading an interview where they were talking about Joel crouches throughout the whole game, the whole time. And they said, like, if he actually crouched like that, his quads would be like massive.
And his back would be all bent.
He's like, he can't, he's like, I think Pedro said he couldn't squat more than like 3 minutes or something like that. It would have been like too much. So they had to obviously change the squatting now.
Yeah. And even when we were playing, you would always yell at me because I'm such a nervous video game player. I'm not very good at it. So like the moment we're going into a new area, the moment I hear like something, instantly crouching, and you're like, you don't need to crouch. I'm like, I need to be safe. My safe zone. So I think, I don't think I was missing anything. I don't think I was disappointed that, not to have things. I think if anything, I appreciated the fast pace.
Right.
It made, there was more urgency to it.
And I think there's something more organic with this plot. I want to see what you think about this, Adam. In the game, it's a little bit different how Joel kind of gets on this mission with Ellie that we're going to come to. In the game, it's more about him running guns and just trying to get like stuff to sell and like trade off and whatnot. I feel like they tried to give Joel a little more heart, maybe, with what he's trying to do here. He's trying to get a battery so they can go find his brother Tommy, who's missing on a run. I kind of like that change. I think that's more maybe in the character of Joel because it's someone he's still attached to and still cares about. And it makes sense. I think it makes a little more sense in some way, I guess. Like he's throwing it all out here to risk it. I could see him risking his life for Tommy more than I could see him risking his life for guns.
Right.
In some respects, at least with that change. So I kind of appreciate that. And they don't let up with that. Like it goes pretty quick. We kind of, like you said, the game, it's very long in the beginning, and it is a tutorial partly, but the story, you don't really tell how much a story like lagged until you see it put on screen and changed a little bit. Keeping the core essence, but just move it along. All right, we got to get to the certain point that we want to tell. We got to get to Ellie, and that's going to be what we're going to talk about now. So Ellie, I don't know if I'm sold yet, and I don't want to say I don't like her. But I can't say I don't like her, actually, because there's not enough of her.
Right.
What do you think, Adam? Have you any
I'm in the
feeling
same boat.
yet?
Same boat. I'm in the same exact boat. I want to give her more time. I'm not entirely sold yet, though.
I know.
I'm really not.
And that's going to be the piece that will make or break the show.
I think so.
Because, and not even just, if we'll make the last kind of game comparison here, but Ellie in the game, it could go one of two ways. Even when you first meet her in the game, she can almost come across extremely annoying at times. Extremely grating, extremely annoying. But there's a heart there, and there's something more to her character. And as you spend time with her, you start to see that. So I hope the show is going to be able to go that route. But again, based on what we were given, it's very little. I want to say, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes max of real time with her, if that. I mean, it's very small. I can't judge her yet.
No.
She acts like Ellie, I think. She looks like Ellie. But is she going to be Ellie? That's what the question I think is going to be. And I feel bad for her because that's a lot of pressure for her to carry on this character for all the fans out there. Again, she has to, as soon as we saw Joel and we spent like 10 minutes with him, I knew I loved him.
Yep.
Her, not so much yet. And I don't know. Is there something, can you even lay anything that you might think might be missing? Something that she nailed, Adam? What are it's hard because I was really trying to find the right words before we even came on here because I wanted to talk about it, but
I don't know. It just seems like she's more like she hasn't experienced the trauma that Ellie has.
Right.
I guess like her personality isn't just they're not lining up properly is what it seems to me.
Because when we meet Ellie, I know she's very trauma filled already.
Right.
But she's angry. That's part of her character arc. It's a very big thing, and it's something that'll continue on for the rest of her character arc. Is just her anger with the world, and there's a lot of that there. But Julie, did you think it came off almost a little annoying. I mean, at least right now, it came off just like, I'm cursing, I'm dropping F-bombs left and right, and I'm flipping people off.
Right.
But that's not a character. That's just yelling loudly.
But when you and I talked about it, though, you even said Ellie in the video game can come off as quite annoying, especially in the beginning.
Right, and I hope...
Because her and Joel are butting heads, and she's got, like, that need to prove herself to, look, I'm tough, I can take care of myself. And I agree with both of you. We didn't get enough time with her. I'm curious to see... I'm surprised we didn't bring it. I didn't bring it up sooner. Her and Pedro are both Game of Thrones alum. Yeah, she was Lady Mormont of Bear Island, and she was a badass. Again, different show, different character, but I think she is capable of pulling off a strong character who can handle herself. Because man, she was even younger back then, like probably 5 years or so.
At least,
and she was leading her little island and taking out White Walkers. She was a badass. So I'm confident in her ability to do that. However, it becomes challenging when you are taking on that mantle of a beloved character. So I'm gonna have high hopes for her. I'm hoping that she proves herself.
Right, and it's interesting because we get a little bit of a taste. Again, we're not going into spoilers here, but the reason that the Fireflies have been keeping her, which we actually didn't, maybe we should circle back here. We didn't actually talk about the Fireflies. We do get, what did you guys think? Now, the one actress they did bring in from the video game. What did you think of that, Adam?
I thought that was super cool.
Right, how cool is that?
I want them to do that more. I thought that was great.
And she seemed really excited about it, right? Like that's the fact that because I watched the if you guys stick around on the HBO series, they have like a little bit after Last of Us discussion, and that's really cool. I think that gives you like a little bit of insight into the show.
Yep.
It's funny that she said like, I tried out for this role years ago, and now I'm playing her, and I've actually grown into this character. Yeah. So I think that's really cool to see, and she did a phenomenal job. I thought going.
Yeah,
into
absolutely. I thought she was a great Marlene.
Yeah, and I hope they do bring her back. I hope they continue to bring back like Marlene, bring other characters back when appropriate, obviously.
Right, of course.
But I thought that was a really good job. The Fireflies, they don't go too much into this show, which is fine. We're just starting, obviously.
Right.
All we know is that there's a resistance group, which you can kind of understand from the setting, because the setting, too, is something that in this show, just to touch on, beautiful. Architecture, beautifully brought up. It looks very post-apocalyptic. They did an excellent job with the set design for this show. Looks like you stepped right in a post-apocalyptic world, like from the game. Some of the sets kind of mirror the game, and they did a really good job with that. Even if it didn't, I think it looks like a very visually interesting world, which I can get behind. Them doing that. Our last character too, also we didn't talk about, is Tess. Tess was a very popular character from the game as well. She's very important crux to the story in the beginning. I thought she did a fine job. I wouldn't say I had any issues with her. I do love the original Tess, so I'm a little biased, I guess. But I think she did a fine job. What'd you think, Adam? Any qualms with that?
Yeah, no, I'm probably about the same as you.
Yeah,
serviceable.
Okay.
She's there.
Yeah, she's there. Which
she had like the spunk of her, that grit.
Yeah, she had that. She captured the personality. At least I could say this for the show so far is no one feels like they're like a caricature of a video game character.
No.
Right.
They all feel like real characters. And again, Ellie really is just the big one I think that everyone's going to be watching. And I feel so sorry for this girl, Bella Ramsey. I really feel bad for her just because it's a role. She has to nail it. If she doesn't nail it, the show might not be able to stand up on its 2 feet, I don't think.
I think the next episode will probably be the make or break it for her, because we'll actually get to see more of her throughout the entire episode.
Yeah,
right. We just didn't have enough time with her. I think that's really what it boils down to. Yeah,
and the interesting is they are going to bring some of the changes that they predicted in the previews. So if you haven't really seen, we won't talk too much about it because if we talk about it, it adds more context and it will be spoilery if you watch the previews. So I don't want to go into too many details, but based on what I saw, from what they've shown, we are going to get some of the more interesting backstory stuff that we didn't get in the game is going to be in this show. It was also through side content that we also got some stuff. So they're going to interweave this. So Ellie's going to get more fleshed out, it seems like, throughout the show. A couple other characters, which I'm very excited for that. To see where they go. But going forward, I think the future looks bright for The Last of Us. I can't say I've been this hyped for a show in quite a while. It lived up to all the expectations I had, which I think that brings us to our final scores. I'm going to give The Last of Us Episode 1, When You're Lost in the Darkness, 9.5 out of 10.
Move.
This is a premiere, guys. This is what I look for when I go to watch a show. I want something to hook me right away. Give me a premise, give me characters I care about. It has all that. I can only hope it's going to get stronger from here. Like I said, even if I didn't know The Last of Us, I think there is a lot here for new fans. It's easy to digest. It's easy to understand. As long as they kind of keep it simple and stick to the raw characters that are in this show, I don't think you can fail. I think there's a lot to go here. Adam, where do you stand with episode 1 here?
I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10 as well.
Count slowly and clearly from 1 to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Slowly and clearly.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fuck you.
A lot of potential here. I don't really have that many issues with the show, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
No, I feel like I'm just like trying to find things to find wrong with it, and I'm having a hard time. Really,
Yeah,
I really
it is
did.
tough.
They did a really good job with this. All right, very cool, Adam. Julie, how about you? Where do you stand?
I'm going to give The Last of Us Episode 1 a 9.5 out of 10.
Where'd you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
It's better when I do.
It was only $20, which I stole from you. I could have stolen 60, but I put the change back because I'm an honest thief. Besides, it's the thought that counts. And you were never going to do it for yourself, so.
Thank you.
Really stellar opening, strong cast. The performances where it mattered were phenomenal. It was, fast-paced. Even for someone who knew what was going to happen, a lot of anxiety-filled moments. So I'm really excited to see. It's only going to ramp up from here.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to come, and it's even more exciting when you don't know what's to come. And even bigger than that, I can't wait to see what they've changed for us.
Yeah.
Because for me to be engaged in something either I've read or I've played or whatever the case is, I do want to see some changes, and there has to be a reason for me to come and watch it. Otherwise, I can just go replay what I already experienced or reread, whatever the case is. I want to see what these changes are, and I want them to be good changes. So we can only see what happens, but let us know in the comments below what you guys think. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Is Ellie going to suck? Is she going to be great? Is Joel Pedro Pascal the daddy of the internet like everybody says?
Yes.
I don't know. That's a thing apparently. Julie always
He
says
is
it.
the daddy. He's everybody's daddy.
Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. No spoilers if you can. Like I said, we try to keep it light. Don't spoil it for anybody else. If you know what's going to happen, keep it to yourself, please. But all right, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That's Adam. That's Julie. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.